Okay. Hi everyone, welcome to Back Street Art District and to the back of my studio. Here we are, another first Wednesday, and time for a nice talk about, time for a nice talk about art. And so, as usual, I'll start here with my libation. This is Green Spot in honor of O'Loughlin's Pub in Ballyvaughan, Ireland. And to Margaret, cheers. So if you're watching, click like so I know that you're here. I can see how many people watch, but I don't usually see who they are. I want to know who's here and who's watching. So, and I'm glad that you're watching. So, anyway, so I have kind of a philosophical topic for tonight, and I have my trusty assistant here, Eli. Well, he's busy at the moment. And that's fine. So I was going through my books. I have a new book to me that I have on loan. We recently saw or were exposed to the work of Gustav Klimt, and so I am borrowing this big volume. And as I was looking at it and thinking about it, I remembered someone from my past who used to say, was a designer, used to say, there's nothing new under the sun. Can you see me all right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, you know, I was in my 20s when this was going on, and
Right.
I felt like it was kind of a cynical thing to be saying. And hi, Eli, you're causing the stir. Yeah, you are. Okay. So there's nothing new under the sun. So when I was in my 20s and I was just starting my career, just starting in visual merchandising, studying interior design at night school, I was not interested in hearing a sentiment like that. I thought it was pretty cynical. I still kind of think so, but my ideas about that are more nuanced, as they are. And so what I began to notice as I was going through this book and looking at that is it was reminding me of other stuff. So what I want to think about and talk about is that idea of there's nothing new under the sun, because in some ways there is truth in that. We have only the same amount of things that in shapes and colors and all of that that we can use. They go through cycles and fashions, and which is all very interesting. But they also relate to one another. It also reminds me of when I was studying Native American Berdache and other gender variant figures in history around the world, in religious context, I began to see it. It's kind of like when you buy a new car and you go on the road and suddenly all the cars are the same model as yours. They were there all along, but you never noticed them. So that was the kind of thing that was happening to me. So let's start here with Klimt. So what I was looking at, and what struck me about this, is that there were a couple of different styles and movements, art movements, that were happening kind of simultaneously. Klimt came before they did, and so the two movements would be Art Nouveau and Art Deco. And so I'm just going to open this to random the random pages that I had. But what I began to notice were sort of the things on the overleaf here and some of the other figures. I'll keep going. Here's some more of this. This has a real Egyptian feel to it, especially with this eye. But he lived in the middle of the 19th century. So there was interest, I guess, in Egyptology, I would presume. And the spirals are also very interesting. And what has always intrigued me about his work, and I'm fascinated with, is the colors that he uses, and how much gold he puts in his work. So this is another mural, similar to the other one. You have to look for the details to see, but he fills it in. So that reminded me of Art Nouveau, because Art Nouveau was curves of nature, and the most famous, I think, or the great signature of Art Nouveau was things like the subway station in Paris that has the elaborate curlicues. There's some beautiful pieces of architecture also that have similar look to it. This, because of the curvy nature of it, also lends itself to the idea of Art Nouveau. And here's some more. It's not quite, though, because Art Nouveau, I think, came a little later. Art Nouveau and Art Deco. So Art Deco, which I have a book of over here, was very industrial. It was a celebration of industry and of modernism, modern style, and a celebration of the great architecture of that period. But there's also some influence of Art Nouveau, even in this book on Art Deco. It's happening around the same time. So you have decorative arts here, as it says decorative arts. But there's leaves, and there's water, and there's curvy lines, where Art Deco is generally thought of as a little more geometric. But this comes later. This comes later than Klimt. So are these artists influenced by Klimt? I wonder. Let's look at a little more of his stuff. He's here. This is him. I noticed in this picture. So looks like maybe he was a bit of a character. That's what I would say. So there's something else that this reminded me of as well. I'm trying to think of what order I want to look at these things. And I think I'll go to this. So here's when I think of Art Nouveau, I think of this. But Mackintosh, Charles René Mackintosh, did these marvelous curvy lines, these beautiful floral decorative designs, architectural elements like this, and this, celebrating nature. Some have said that, and this is the same picture that was in the other book here, some have said that Art Nouveau was a reaction to Art Deco. That Art Deco was about industrialization, and the people who celebrated Art Nouveau were not into that. They wanted to remain with nature. They didn't want to, reject nature altogether. But these beautiful curvy lines. So there you have that. That book's going to close, so I'll just let it do it. So I want to ask, are there any questions? If you have a question, you can always put it in the comments. And if Stu sees it, he can read it to me.
But I can't.
But he doesn't see them. Okay, so anyway, So here's something else that came to mind. I pull this book out every now and then, Illuminations of Hildegard of Bingen. Hildegard of Bingen lived way before Art Deco, way before Art Nouveau. She lived in the 12th century, I believe. She was an abbess in Rhine country in Europe, and she was a very gutsy gal who would write to the Pope and tell him that he was doing something wrong or whatever. And I hesitated bringing this book, but I'm bringing it because of the format, the shape, because I see a lot of this shape in these books regarding Art Nouveau. Here it is, this kind of vertical rectangle like that. And in her case, this is a Hildegard Art Nouveau, right? She's got stars and oceans and all that. Her work, however, is very content heavy. As an example of that, let me just pick that. These were spiritual visions that she had. See, here she is in the corner, and she painted her spiritual visions. So there's lots of circles and earths and cosmos and things like that. So it's not about the content. It's about the graphic format that I see. So I just think it's interesting because here's a format being borrowed again by a couple of our favorite people. Here's another book about styles. I think I saved a page on Art Nouveau. Here's a page on Art Nouveau. Again, to me, she has a very Art Deco look, even though this is Art Nouveau. And what makes it Art Nouveau is the font choice is curvy. The decorative pieces are curvy here. And Art Deco, here she's very severe and fabulous, Di Lampica, and these beautiful women of these paintings. It's very industrial. She's in a car. No flowers in that one. And so I saved this page because I thought this image was really interesting. So I need the other glasses so I can tell you what this is, because it's not a movement I'm familiar with. Vorticism, a notable British contribution to modern art immediately before and during World War I. So you can see a little bit of that feel from that era in this piece, and yet it's very angular, and I think the time frame is probably really important. So this kind of I saved this also, and I thought, here's Ezra Pound, I think, wrote about something, and so the name Vorticism came from an essay, Vortex, by Ezra Pound. And I don't know what this is about, but it's a watercolor, ink, and chalk on paper. Just the kind of stuff that's still being done today, but very angular, very Art Deco-like in some ways, right in that time frame, right after World War I, immediately before and during World War I in Europe. This is the kind of work you see. Also not a lot of color in here, and I see a face that's got a little bit of grimace to it. It's an interesting piece, but it's not so very different from these other styles, and that's kind of the point that I'm trying to get to, because the question for me, is there anything new under the sun? Well, yes and no is my real answer. So, is there anything new under the sun? Well, it depends on how you define your terms. If you define your terms as it has to be absolutely new and different, then, you know, maybe it's true that there's nothing new under the sun. But we take the same elements, we take the same shapes and colors, and we mix them up, and we do something different. And I believe that my influence when I'm working is a result of all the different things that I have seen and experienced and remember, or are somewhere filed in the back of my mind, that somehow make their way out of my brain through my hands, through my wrist and arms, into some visual depiction of something. And I'm not copying, but I'm influenced. So I don't know, what does that mean? So the cynic would say, there's nothing new about it. It's not new, because it's the same elements. I don't know if I agree. So, my favorite Erte, can't help it. Erte, known as an Art Deco artist and fashion designer, but this piece has a very Art Nouveau feel, because it's in nature, because the branches are up here, these beautiful curves. He really had a very elegant style. His hand was beautiful. Look at this gorgeous physical depiction of this. Is this, I must say, yeah, that's a brooch, a pin of this piece. I want one. It's really beautiful. But other pieces of his, like this, familiar to us, we have a copy of this on a scarf in our house. Totally Art Deco. For 15 years he did the covers of Harper's Bazaar. So somewhere in the world is probably a gouache painting of this image, somewhere in the world. He probably made it into prints. I'm sure he made all of them into prints. Also very Art Deco. I pulled this one out because this is somewhere in between those two. So Erte, I probably have said before, he was fashion designer for Folies Bergère, then went on to do these covers, these fashion sketching covers, elaborate fashion sketching covers for Harper's Bazaar, and then prints throughout the rest of his life. Lived, I think, into his early 90s. And unfortunately, unfortunately for me, his family continued to make prints of the images that he had, so that diluted how many there were in the world. And on the other hand, maybe that made it more beautiful and more people got to enjoy the beauty. Why did I save this page? Very architectural looking, very elegant. One friend of mine believes that his designs look like he was designing for drag queens, and that he was, although I don't think that's true here in this case. But these look like, maybe you could say that about them. They do have a little bit of a trade gay, dramatic look to them as well.
For everyone.
Huh?
Erte has something for everyone.
Erte has something for everyone.
He is elegant.
Definitely elegant. Definitely fits into the Art Deco category. I have one more book, so let's look at it, and then we can look back at the Klimt book. So it's the Glasgow style. When the library up at FIDM in San Francisco would be weeding out their books, they would give them away. I got a couple. Here's one of them. And I got this after we went to Glasgow. Lucky me. So this motif, if you can see it here, is similar to something I showed in the Macintosh book. which is underneath something somewhere. I put
Here.
Oh, there it is, okay. Well, it's similar to this to start with. It's also similar to that, but there was another really nice picture of it in here somewhere. Here's the same kind of motif in stained glass. Oh, of course I can't find it. Okay, well, anyway, you know what, oh, here it is. Right as I'm ready to give up. So here it is, in this format and in another format. I see Eli is drinking water. Imagine everyone can hear it. So here's the same format again. It's a poster format that these were used for. And another beautiful poster. More Art Nouveau style. Hi, Eli. Eli helps everything wherever he goes. So, more designs. So, anyway. So that was the thing that I was thinking about. Is there anything new under the sun? Or are we just repeating things or not? And I think we do repeat similar things, but each of us takes our own experience and our own perspective into it. So when you see, I follow a woman on Twitter who posts pictures all day long of different art and artists. And she made a comment about this. She posted something that looked very much like an Edward Hopper, but it was not a Hopper. It was another artist who did similar kind of work. And she commented in her post that some people would say that it looked like someone else. It's representative of someone else. She disagrees. She thinks that every artist has their own work and does their own thing. So was the painting she showed similar to Hopper? Yes. Was it exactly Hopper? No. So there's a lot of that around. So maybe it's more of a soup. Maybe it's more of, there's everything new in your soup. You put all kinds of stuff in your soup and your stew, and it all comes out different every time. And so maybe that's what it is. So with that, I would like to say thank you for watching tonight. Please, if you're in Palm Springs, come on down. We're all open tonight. There are 13 galleries here at Back Street Art District. If not, and you want to watch more of these videos, I have a whole collection of them, and you can access them through my website, timjleary.com. And on the first page, you'll see a link, and that link will take you to my YouTube channel, where I have, I think, some 19 videos, 19 talks presented there. So that's my story. Good night.